And, and in the UK, we've got some beautiful weather out here at the moment, and it kind of feels a little bit of a sad thing to come in and basically do some lectures. But I'm really enjoying doing these lectures for you all. So let's start with a good old thumbs up for people that can see the lesson goals for today. George, fastest fingers first, thank you. Stefan, Stacey, B, Daniel, Christopher, Calvin, Kenneth, Patrick. Look at that all rushing in now. It's fantastic, isn't it? Lovely. Okay, well, that's all good then. So today's going to be an interesting lecture. I kind of like this one, but it kind of allows us to do a bit of conversations between us and we can have some interesting chat. So please do feel free to smash a lot of stuff onto live chat. Remember, there is no crazy questions to ask here. The more interaction we get from you is going to be much more fun for us all. At the end, we are going to try and do a bit of a case study. You will have to get a pen and piece of paper out and do a little bit of thinking, a bit of work at the end. But hey, that's towards the end, and we'll worry about that when we get there. But today's lecture is really going to be about maintenance. Okay, so we're going to review the three types of maintenance that we basically have. The three types of maintenance that basically goes on the systems. We're going to talk about common prevention maintenance routines, things we can do with the UPS systems, batteries, HVACs, fire suppressants, and all those sort of things we'll talk about. We're going to identify some daily IT tasks. So these are what, I don't know why they fall into IT, but some of these tasks just tend to sit with the IT group. And these are things like monitoring activities for effective data center management. Then we're going to have a little bit of an analyze in terms of a case study that we'll basically go through. And that would just be a bit of fun. Remember, there's no wrong or right. And that's your option to have a little think around some maintenance tasks that you recommend probably would have done wrong or been done wrong. And we can kind of throw some ideas out there. Okay, so if we're ready, let's kick the ball rolling. So the first one we always talk about is preventative maintenance. Okay, so preventative maintenance, all these maintenance kind of run on a little bit of a plan, so to speak. So the general idea is within preventative maintenance, you're trying to find things that happen before they happen. But these are things that we can put into a schedule. So we know we are going to schedule to look at things, to make sure we change things, to make sure things are running properly at a particular schedule of things. So that's what we're really looking for in terms of preventative maintenance. We will find something that might be going wrong before it basically happens. And this is without receiving any warnings. So here's a starter for 10 for you. Who can give me an example of preventative maintenance that we end up doing probably once a year? I know we definitely do it in the UK, and I'm hoping you do the same in Europe and America. We do some preventative maintenance once a year. Can anyone give me some examples? Someone's got the mic on there. I think that was might be worth shutting that one off. Danielle Westmore, there you go. Change batteries in the smoke alarm. Definitely. What's that? You should all have smoke alarms. Please put smoke alarms in your premises. We don't want people burning down, do we? Update virus protections. Yes, that's always done at a particular time. Yes, you can check that at a particular time. Think about things that are done on schedules. Daniel's example, how often would you test that battery in that smoke alarm, Daniel? Throw that one out there as well. Stefan said changing air filters. On anything particular, Stefan? Gabriel does the gutter cleaning. Oh, I did mine the other day. I have some horrible drips. Basically, it seems to gather around a certain place. If I don't clean them, it then basically just swamps a particular part of my decking. So yes, getting up on that ladder. I actually have a magic spoon. It's embarrassing, really. I've got one of those big ladle top spoons, and I've attached it to a long pole. So I kind of only have to move my ladder to 2 locations, and I can reach all the length of my gutter. That's great fun, isn't it? Patrick says oil change in the car. Yeah, your oil changes in your cars are done every X thousand of miles or every X number of months or years, aren't they? So these are things that we definitely fall into preventative maintenance. Spark plugs, Calvin, you do a lot more work on cars than most people nowadays if you're tinkering with the spark plugs. But yes, things like that. Yinka says checking moisture on a Yagi antenna connector, wireless connection. Do you get a lot of moisture on that? That's interesting, I guess. Calvin says all the fuses in the car. So, I mean, we're all definitely along that right sort of track. We are here looking for things we would schedule. I mean, as I said, a lot of you hit it nail on the head. The car one that we do for preventative maintenance, and is normally a legal requirement. In the UK, we get an MOT certificate, which is a Ministry of Transport certificate. So we take our cars along and we get someone to test all the important things. So they test the brakes work, they test the steering works. You know, they test it runs okay and it tracks fine. And they'll do a whole load of other checks to make sure that car is actually roadworthy. And that essentially is preventative maintenance, because anything they pull up, they will go, you need to fix this. And it gets fixed before it goes on the road. So that is the maintenance part of it. The preventative side of it is booking it in once a year. It happens for us in the UK. So that's really what we're thinking about here. Yes. Kadir, yes, updating the router firmware quarterly to patch vulnerabilities. Yes, definitely. So when we think of preventative maintenance, the key words we're thinking of is it's a schedule. It's a routine that we can basically book in and we can make sure that we are doing. And these in a data center rely on a well-structured format. So we will have preventative maintenance tasks that are booked in. And these can be either 6 monthly or yearly. They can be 3 monthly. They can be weekly. But essentially, these are maintenance tasks where we go out. So they are periodic things. There's a couple of examples given down the bottom there. Periodic firmware and software updates. We need to make sure they're patched, don't we, and updated. So we are protecting ourselves from any vulnerabilities that are out there. Scheduling replacement for air filters. Yes. On network switches and routers. Not sure I've got an air filter on my network switch or router. Certainly air filters on a HVAC system is worth looking at, isn't it? Regular cleaning of server fans and heat sinks and air filters. That'll obviously help the server maintain its coolness, won't it? Maintain its air conditioning coming through there and maintaining the temperature that's required on those particular devices. Anyone else got any particular ideas about preventative maintenance they do? I could click through. I think it's probably the best thing, isn't it? I want to keep going for that. See Gabrielle typing away there. Stephen, now I said I didn't read that one. You said HVAC. Yes, having a look at the HVAC. And we'll have a little bit of a closer look at these in a while. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. Daniel Westmore basically going out with a beautiful quote there. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Anyone else got one? I think a stitch in time saves 9 was what my gran used to tell me. Gabrielle says updating drivers in a BIOS regularly. Yes. Okay, so we have all those sort of things that we can do. The next type of maintenance we basically have is predictive maintenance. Okay, so the cycle for the predictive maintenance is the difference between preventative and predictive. Predictive, we are looking at data. So we are gathering data in from our data center. We are analyzing that data. We are looking at it. We might use something like a smart AI algorithm to look at things. And these will basically predict when something is going to fail. So for example, if you can see an air conditioning unit is running hotter than some of the others, or for example, is not blowing out as efficiently, you can think about that. And if you get that report back in your data analyst can go through it and go, oh, unit 12 is not performing as well as unit 1 to 9. Okay, at which point you can look at unit 12 and go, what's wrong with unit 12? So let's have predictive maintenance on it. Could it be the air filter has become clogged there? Could it be one of the hoses is jammed in it? Could it be a bird has decided to nest on the cooling system for that particular item? Okay, so that is predictive. We are getting data in, and the data is telling us there might be something that is wrong with that. So anyone got any examples of any predictive maintenance that they do? Predictive is kind of a bit tricky, isn't it? Don't tend to do a lot of data analysis, do we? ML, you need to expand your acronyms if you're going to use them, Greg. Machine learning, yes. So machine learning does help us with these things. Fire extinguishers usually have a best buy date, but I tend to put that into preventative maintenance because preventative is basically you're checking on a regular occurrence. So you will normally check your fire extinguishers every 6 to 12 months, depending on the requirement. Whereas predictive, you're actually waiting for some information to come in and say, actually, you need to do something. I've got a very poor example of some predictive maintenance. When I stand on my scales once a week, I look at it and it tells me some data that I need to analyze that says, David, I probably need to stop eating so many pies. So that's pretty much a predictive maintenance because that item is literally telling me you probably need to think about it before something bad happens. So predictive maintenance is the one that's good. So the weathering. Oh, George, you kind of mentioned servers. Who knows who can give me a great idea of... No, I'm probably going to see this. Oh, no, let's do it the other way around. Let me lead you into this one, shall we? So a good example on the server. Who's heard of a smart reporting on servers, specifically for server disk drives? The Disk Health Reporter 2, Danielle Westmore. I see you're definitely up there. Patrick, yes, this is essentially our predictive maintenance. Patrick is a good example there before I drop into the smart stuff. It says, would this be the equivalent of seeing a check engine light on your car and deciding to take it to get looked at the garage? Yes, this is you receiving data from your car system that simply says, hey, I think there's something going to go wrong. And if you get an orange light, it normally means there's something minor going wrong. If you get a red light, it means probably stop the car in front of the AA or someone to pick it up. But yes, that light basically comes on and says, I think there's something wrong, you need to get it checked out. So that is predictive maintenance. You're getting data in and you're making a decision based on that. So what I mentioned was the smart report. So the smart report basically works on disk drives. So disk drives in your server will report to your system how the disk is behaving. And that is based on things like read-write speed, spin speed if you're dealing with spinny disks, the spin up and spin down speeds on those as well as any general health checks on there. So what Smart will actually do is Smart will have orange flags that it waves every now and again that says, hey, I think this disk is probably going to go on you. So that is predictive because the system is then telling you we probably need to change this disk drive. Smart goes as far as when it does actually fail, it will basically pop a big red flag up for you. But it gives you things. Daniel basically pointed out there, tells me your SSD has about 14 years to go. So in about 13 and a half years, I'm sure Daniel's going to take note of that predictive maintenance and probably change her SSD. That should be running the same machine, to be honest with you. Victor's made a comment in there. Everything has an expiry date. Yeah, you can think of equipment that tends to fail at every certain time. I mean, cans, it's not true. Cans of soup don't have an expiry date. You can keep that. They do. My dad's clearing out some of his house. We looked at the back of his cupboard the other day. He had a can of soup that was from 2001. We were tempted to open it and try to eat it, but we've kind of decided that discretion was the better part of valor on that one, to be honest with you. So what we have with predictive is we are looking for data to come in and tell us that something is going wrong. We can use things like our advanced analytics, machine learning, and algorithms to basically process the data that comes in. Okay, and that'll predict the likelihood of failures. It can be rated in a percentage or a pie chart or different colors, but normally you will have something that kind of flashes up and says, hey guys, I think this is probably going to fail. So the predictive models provide insight into what you should then be booking in to get changed. Inca basically says in there, it's a very good comment. Network performance monitoring, anomaly detection and monitoring data patterns that could cause network outages. Use of IoT sensors, yes. So all these devices are literally chatting to us about what we should be thinking about. Telemetry also, yes, you can basically watch, and you can watch systems, for example, if you're talking about your HVAC and your air conditioning systems, you can watch their performance drop off. So you know you've got a maintenance, a regular preventative maintenance that happens with that. We go and we change the air filters. But if you can watch one drift off and get worse and worse and worse, then your sensors tell you that, the data comes in, and then you can perform a predictive maintenance to say, I think if it carries on that curve, it's going to be totally faulty in 3 months' time. Let's get it fixed within the next month. And that's what you're after with predictive sensing. So there's a couple of examples on the back button. I mean, you've nailed most of it in there. Thank you very much in the live chat. So examples are things like collecting real-time data from power supply units, servers, storage systems, and network equipment. Okay, yes, we can get all that data. SNMP is a common one we use for our network devices, which is fantastic. And we can use machine learning models basically to predict hard drive failures based on historic data and current trends. Again, our smart meters, our smart devices are basically there that tell us when the hard disk drives are going to be failing. And for things like HVAC, there's no reason we can't install vibration sensors. HVACs run on fans. Okay, if a fan is spinning round, if it becomes unbalanced, much like your washing machine, if you put the wrong load in your washing machine, it starts shaking itself to pieces. Well, we don't want that on a HVAC fan. So if our HVAC fan starts vibrating, we can tell that with a vibration sensor. And that'll let us know it's not dead yet, but it is shaking. So that's going to do the bearings no good. It's going to do the rest of the structure no good. We should go and do that. So that is predictive maintenance. There's a very good question there from Kadar, which is, what are the key considerations when selecting sensors and data sources for a predictive maintenance system? Oh, this all depends on exactly who you speak to. Of course, if you speak to your chief financial officer, I'd say it's going to be cheap. Cheap, make it super cheap. If you speak to an IT person, it's got to be accurate. So it's got to be 100% beautiful and work all the time. And some of it will actually depend on exactly where it is basically monitoring. Because let's be honest, if you're monitoring something that is inexpensive for the company and will have a little effect, a small effect, if it dies, then you don't buy a really expensive maintenance system on it. If you're looking to monitor something that is critical for your system, so if it falls over, you're losing thousands of pounds an hour, then you want something that's going to monitor that system, and you probably want the best out of the bunch, don't you? You want to go and cherry pick from the top of that tree and get something in really good, really reliable that gives you the best data possible. So that's really where the balance comes in, weighing out what's the cost if it fails and what's the cost if it, and what's the cost of actually providing the protection. And indeed, you can drop a little bit further into that, drop a little bit further into some of that, and you can talk about things such as risk management. And that's a totally different topic we're going to go. Okay, are you talking about IT equipment and data? What are the key considerations when selecting sensors and data sources? I'm not too sure where that question's going then, if you're talking about IT equipment, because all this is IT equipment and data, isn't it, that we're dealing with here? I may be missing the point. Please feel free to carry on typing in that chat window to try and make it a bit clearer on me. See a couple of you typing, I'll give you a chance to put something in there. I think certainly from my point of view, I think I may be getting a better idea of what you're talking about here. Key considerations for selecting sensors and data sources for predictive maintenance are not being overloaded by the amount of data. You want to collect just the key information that you need to make those predictions. You can buy sensors that will report absolutely everything. And probably a good example of this is local element managers. Local element managers in a data center, or in data centers, are designed to monitor certain particular items. So they will monitor the items. They will grab all the data, such as your log files from your servers, and they will get hundreds and hundreds of bytes of data basically squirted over to them. Now, if you were to report and trawl through all of that information, you would be here forever. Even if you basically poked it up to somewhere, such as a SOC center, security operations center, and said, look, can you monitor all these for things that might fall over? You will just have way too much data to look at. So what you've got to look at doing is saying, what should I be looking for? What are my failure points? What can I analyze? And what will actually give me good results at the end? And not collect everything. Remember, with data, you can always sweep some of it aside and ignore it if you wanted to. In terms of monitor, I think George might be basically saying some things like temperature sensors. Yes. Key things to basically monitor on a server are things such as your smart array, so your smart stuff on your disk drives. You want to be looking at temperature for your processor temperature, as well as any other temperature sensors in there. There's probably a temperature gauge around the PSU, around the power supply unit. And remember, your cabinets will have a temperature sensor in the cold aisle and a temperature sensor in the hot aisle. So the difference between those two will tell you how efficiently things are getting cooled. And you can, of course, measure the amount of power it's using. If it's using too much power, the chances are it's got too much of a workload. Kadir, does that answer that question for you? I know we've kind of gone around a bit of a houses to get there, but I think that's what you're after. If not, please do let us know, because we'd love to have good chats about these things. Okay, I'm happy to hang around if you want to explain that question more. You want to do that now, or do you want to do that later? We are on the topic, so I'm happy to hang around, and we've got some time today. Later, that's fine. Yeah, we can happily pick that up later if you like. Okay, so that is your predictive maintenance there. Any more questions around the predictive maintenance end of things? We've had some good examples there of things. Okay, so let's pop through then and we'll carry on with the next one. And then we have the sort of maintenance that no one really likes to do, but we know we are going to have it. So we have what's known as reactive maintenance. This is our break fix. Okay, this is pretty much the heart of certain knock centers. Yes, something is just broken, rush around, fix it. So it's reactive maintenance. Okay, it involves multiple locations, multiple people will get involved, different manufacturers. And it's literally triggered by something going pop, something going bang. You get a big red light saying your car is no longer going to work for you. Bang, there you go, off it goes. So that then becomes a reactive maintenance where you pull the car over to the side of the road. You check you've got enough water in it. Is it a water leak? Is it an oil failure? Is there something else going wrong with the engine? And that's when you fix it. This is a simple case when, for example, you may have a network drive may fall over. A switch may go pop or something like that. And that will then cause you to move into reactive maintenance where you have to rush around, find the replacement switch, get it to the right location in the data center with the right configuration, and simply swap those two devices over. Anyone got some good examples about some reactive maintenance that they've done themselves? Worth noting that when we start talking about the amount of maintenance that we put in for preventative, predictive, and reactive, like I said earlier on, if you have systems that aren't really critical systems, then it could be more cost effective for you simply not to monitor them, because that costs a lot of money, and simply put up with the fact that if they break, yep, you have a little bit of inconvenience, you have to rush around and get it sorted. But in the long term, that costs you less money to do that and less pain than it is to monitor those particular systems. So there are cases where you will simply accept the risk, and as part of risk management, you'll go, yes, I know if it goes pop, I'm going to be down for a couple of hours while we get a new one in place. And that couple of hours is far less expensive once a year than it is to run the maintenance and run the reactive monitoring of the system. Okay, we've got a couple of examples here then. So examples of reactive maintenance are things like restoring from backups. Okay, you don't know the system's going to go down. You've lost your data. You've now got to restore from backup. Maybe you've been attacked by malware and you've got to restore from your safe backups. Or you may be reconfiguring a VM because the VM has basically crashed. So you might go from the last known good snapshot that you had of that VM and simply go, right, we've got to get that back up. So that again is our massively reactive maintenance in there. Our traditional troubleshooting stuff, yeah. Troubleshooting and resolving hardware and software issues caused by server time. So, I mean, who's experienced a blue screen of death? Put your hand up if you've ever had a blue screen of death. I can see you waving in the background there, Stefan. Yes, that is very much part of our reactive maintenance, isn't it? The system goes pop, computer says no, all of a sudden you've then got to start thinking about repairing. You've basically got to get in there. Victor says that's a common occurrence with Windows. Blue screen of death now is essentially beginning to fade out. I haven't seen it for a fair while in the industry that I'm in, so that's probably quite a surprise. I think Windows programming have got a bit better, security is a bit better. We are seeing a bit less blue screen of death than we used to have, aren't we? Well, Patrick's made a good point there. Patrick basically says preventative is having a backup. Reactive is basically restoring from backup after a system. But I think it's a bit close to call it preventative having a backup. But you can certainly see what you're pointing out. Yes, you would have your backups on a schedule, but you'd only ever use them in a reactive maintenance manner, wouldn't you? George basically says, my first time learning how to set up a dual boot system. I didn't install the bootloader and I couldn't load my Windows. Sorry, I know I'm laughing. Windows OS. So I had to use my backup to restore it all. Yeah, again, this is reacting to something that has gone wrong here and now. Our break fix solutions come in. Yinka basically says investigating the cause of slow performance or a congested network and possibly fixing the problem is reactive. It would be reactive if that's when it's flagged. Now, potentially you might have some predictive maintenance in there that is monitoring the speed of that network. And you might find that if you are monitoring that with an SMTP monitoring system, network monitoring tools, you might see the speed of that system, that network performance drop, drop, and drop, and drop, and drop. Now, predictive will say, oh, that's going to carry on falling down. Let me get in there and fix it now. Reactive is when it gets so low that someone phones you up on the phone and says it's not working. And then you have to rush around and fix it. So that's the definition between the two there, Yinka. Is that clear? See, several people are typing there. That's good. Yes, reinstalling the OS after catching a virus is definitely talking about being very much a reactive maintenance. Robert, classic example there of reactive maintenance. Yes, your co-worker popped a tire on the way to work yesterday. Now, let's use that as a good example here. This is where we can show how not having the monitoring tools is cheaper than basically having a break fix solution. If that person, your co-worker, Robert, how would they check that their tires were not going to pop every time they drove to work? Well, if they wanted to do that in a predictive manner, they'd need to have something that monitors the road surface. So they'd need an infrared system basically to check how the road was clear, check that it was available. They might need to fit sweepers onto the front of the car, which would not only be quite expensive, would look really silly because that would be pushing all the nails and things out of the way. So you can see there, literally, to prevent that from happening ever, working with our predictive maintenance stuff would cost an awful lot of money. So we simply take the risk. We simply go, yes, our tires may pop, because the solution we get into when we do the reactive maintenance isn't so hard. You know, it's an acceptable risk, and that pops into the category of risk management again, doesn't it? Victor says we can predict what we want under the current conditions. This will fail in 5 years, but we could be wrong. You're so right. So right that we could be wrong. And reactive maintenance is problematic if you don't have redundancy. I will say time and time again to companies, your backups and your redundancy are only as good as when you last tested them. Okay, so if you're not having fake restores or trying to restore your data every 6 months, how do you know that data is going to be good when you try to restore it? 2M+1. Thanks, Robert, for your power supply units. Yeah, that makes it next question. I think Robert partially answers that one as well. Thanks, Robert, for that. So in the event of a cooling system failure in a server room, what reactive steps would you take to protect the equipment? Main operation continuity. When we talked about basically dealing with the HVAC systems or building HVACs, you talk about having enough HVAC systems and capacity to keep that system cool, and then some more. So you're kind of looking at the 2M+1 situation where we've got more capability of keeping things cool, more separate systems. So we haven't just got one system keeping that server room cool. We've got 2, 3, 4, 16, X number of systems trying to keep that server room cool. So if one pops, well, we go, well, the others just need to pick up the slack, and they'll start working a bit harder while we get that one fixed. As long as you can run those other at the high capacity until you get that one fixed, you are properly covered in there, aren't you? And your reactive is then simply running in and fixing that air conditioning unit. Now, if you are happy to do that and you were confident in that, you wouldn't need to have any monitoring tools on those HVAC systems. You could simply say, it's all right, I'm only going to pop one at a time. One's going to break at a time. If it does, we've got capacity and we'll be fine. So I can save my money and not bother with any maintenance, any monitoring tools on those. Does that make sense? Clear, Robert? Thank you very much. Great stuff. That's fantastic. I've had some great chats. This is what we want today. I'm probably going to go a bit more into it later, so I love this. Yinka says, what about when a servo malfunctions and you replace the faulty part or the entire unit with a new one? what do you call mitigation of legacy devices? So greenfields. Well, a lot of servers, okay, initially your server design is based around redundancy anyway. So your server will have, let's talk about disks. So your server will have disks that have multiple disks in there. So you'll have a RAID array, so you can lose one or two. So we don't tend to lose a whole server. You will have multiple fans in there, so you can lose one or two fans and it'll still keep itself cool. You'll have multiple power supply units in the servers, and that will allow them to keep it running when one power supply unit goes, and they're hot swaps. You run to the supply desk, you grab one, you run to the server, you plug it in and reconnect it, and that brings two up again. If it is like a total motherboard failure or something similar to that, and you are literally looking at the fact the server is so old, then yes, this is all reactive maintenance, isn't it? So if the server is too old and it simply pops, then you can get ready. If you're ready for it and you are using predictive maintenance, so your monitoring tools are saying, mate, this server is 20 years old, it's going to fall over. Somewhere along the lines, its single power supply unit is going to pop, we're going to have problems. Then your predictive maintenance straight away says to you, replace this within X number of months. So you can schedule in your predicted maintenance where you're basically going to do it before it goes pop. So you have a prevention before it goes pop, you have a maintenance when it goes pop. Hope that answers that question for you, Yinka. Stefan says, as long as there's servers to pick up the other slack. Yes, if you're simply running VMs on the servers, then normally your VM stack will allow you, basically your hypervisor will allow you to drop that VM onto another system if it isn't already automatically replicated across the systems. Certainly in the big warehouses, big data centers, they will have racks and racks and racks of multiple servers. And the hypervisor will manage that systems across multiple servers. And they will simply say, if I lose this particular server, I've got copies of all the VMs that are running on that server. So I don't care because I'm just going to spin another one up on one of these other servers. Okay, and you won't even notice it. I'll simply go, right, that's great. That server system's up and running now. And Stefan basically points out there, totally right, as long as there is other servers to pick up that slack. You'd open an Amazon data center, yeah, there'll be other servers around, won't there? See George type in there. Talking about VMs, it's not really a VM conversation we're having at the moment, George. So I might skip on that one out. I'm not super familiar with Docker, Kubernetes. Okay, so Yinka understands that. So what type of maintenance is it when you fix the broken one? Because it is broken there and then, you are doing break fix. So that is reactive maintenance. You've waited, you've done nothing, the system is broken. That then becomes reactive break fix maintenance. You might have been predicting it, but your predictive measures have not allowed you to replace it before it breaks. So predictive maintenance, you're replacing before it falls over. Reactive, it's already broken, and now you're fixing it. Doesn't matter about the redundancy and all that sort of stuff. Focus really just on it's broken now, I need to fix it now. Or I think it's going to break, let's change it beforehand. Perfect. Okay. Okay, so let's have a quick chat around maintenance routines. Second goal we kind of said on our session, wasn't it? So we have common maintenance routines that you're likely to see in a data center. These could be things such as looking after your generators, your UPSs, your batteries, preventive maintenance on your HVAC systems. We've had a little chat about some of those already. And preventive maintenance on your fire suppressors. These are all things that need to basically make sure that they are running and they are able to do it. Data center cleaning. Why do we bring data center cleaning up again? I will mention it a bit later on because there's a good reason for things. And what we know is floor inspections. Okay, so we go into a bit of detail here. So prevention maintenance for generators. What's normally recommended is for generators, you have a monthly schedule and then you basically have a yearly schedule. I know data centers that very simply do weekly inspections as well. So your monthly inspection is checking all the connections. So regularly examine the wiring, the electrical connections, make sure everything is still good. Are there any signs of wear and tear in some of the hoses? This is you physically walking around and having a look at the connections. You can test the battery charger. Okay, we know basically we're probably going to draw some power to basically do it. So the battery is going to be in there. If the battery is not charged, then we probably won't be able to get a maintenance generator to basically work, will we? There's an exercise engines. We know I mean, who's had a car that's sat in a driveway for more than a year? I know I have. It's quite embarrassing. It's not quite embarrassing, it's quite fun. I'll tell you when I had an old Ford Capri when I was a young man. That shows how old I am, actually. And Ford Capri when I was an old man. So I parked it on the driveway. I said, oh, I'm going to fix that. I'm going to build that. I'm going to fix it. It'll be great. It stopped running because I think the back disc seized up or something. So I just left it there, left it there, left it there, left it there. About a year later, I came out to it and said, oh, well, I'll just run the engine, just check it's all right. Turned out the whole engine had seized on me, okay? It wasn't going to do anything. I had to fully lift the engine out. I had to replace, well, what's it called? I had to take the rocker cover off. I had to replace all the seals. I had to bore out the pistons to free the pistons up. I took great times with a big hammer that day. So it was that sort of event. If you don't constantly check your diesel generators, your generators that you're running, they will seize up. If you don't turn them over, yeah, things will go wrong. So you need to regularly do that. They recommend monthly. Yeah, it's probably a good exercise. Do it then. And with anything mechanical, cleaning. So check that it's clean, check the surrounding area, remove debris, dust. Anything like that is going to give problems. Monthly, check the fluid levels. How often do you personally check your fluid level on your oil in your car? Oh, when was the last time? That's a good question in the live chat. When was the last time anyone checked their oil level in their car? Robert's definitely not checking right now. Guilty is charged. When your car breaks down. Kenneth has gone for break fix approach. Daniel's in there as well. If it ain't broke. It's okay until you break down on the motorway or something like that. You know, you're hundreds of miles away from home, nowhere to get home, and all of a sudden your car fails because it runs out of oil. I know I know certainly with cars, I tend to have that sort of, I'm like most of you by the sounds of it, in that, yeah, why am I checking the oil? Okay, I will check my oil, tire pressures and water on my car before I do a really long journey with the kids in the car. If I'm doing, you know, 6 hours going camping or something like that, or to North Wales to see Nanny Rita, then yeah, I'll take 10, 15 minutes just to check the oil, tire pressures, and other things like that. So it's probably worth thinking about it. So with data centers, no one says, oh, it'll be all right, it'll be all right. No, because it won't be all right. So they go check the fluids. So you check the levels there. We also check for leaks because, of course, any sign of a leakage does then give us a heads up to the fact that something isn't quite right. So it could be the fuel, could be the coolant, could be the oil system. Because one thing you don't want to have is you don't want to have your data center run out of power, kick across your generators, and then 2 hours into running your generators, you find out 2 of them are actually going to burn out on you because they're overheating because you haven't got any coolant in them. And the last one on the list there is check the intake and exhaust. Okay, we know things can obstruct those. like the movies, no one's going to run in there and stick 2 bananas up your tailpipe and so you can't start the car. Things such as birds, other creatures may nest in there or decide they want to crawl into there. Making sure they are not clogged is quite important. Yeah, George has got a very good comment there. Not long ago, the tech of the dealership didn't fill up your oil properly after flushing and the engine overheated. Now you're paranoid. Check the oil quite often. How long does it take to check? That's the thing. You run out, open the bonnet, don't you? Unscrew the oil cap, dipstick in, dipstick out, wipe it. There you go. So 5-10 minutes top, isn't it? Robert's old car used to burn oil. I had one of those as well. Okay, so those are regular checks you really want to be performing on there. So yearly, we want to do things such as oil changes. So we want to physically change that, or yes, it can get mucky. Yearly is probably a bit much for diesel generators, but possibly it's recommended. It's worth at least checking it. Changing all the filters, so oil, fuel filter, air filters. Flush your cooling system, clear it out, put it back in. Change your spark plugs. Spark plugs are cheap. Anything that's cheap that can be done in a preventative maintenance process and is easy to do. Wow, why not do it? You know, if it's not expensive to do it in preventative. Press the transfer switch, so the ATS. Make sure that has proper functionality. And that will basically allow you to check the seamless transfer of power between, you know, your regular power system to your diesel generators, your UPS systems. Any got any questions around checking out your generators? Good stuff. So UPSs, we need to look at UPSs and batteries as well. So there's a lot of visual inspections that go on here. So monthly and quarterly checks, visual inspection of UPSs, wander around, have a look, see if there's any visible signs of damage, loose connections, abnormal conditions, thermal scans. I think we mentioned thermal scans before in one of the previous lectures. Yeah, go around and see if there's any hotspots. If there are hotspots, you need to look at them. Some of the less frequent maintenance suggestions in here, things such as replacement of fans. You might have a fan in your UPS system. Remember, they're the big boxes. You might need to replace the capacitors in those to look for optimal performance and reliability in the systems. And of course, our good old friendly inverters that basically converts the DC to AC, which we basically need to use around the data centers. And then, of course, there's our good old-fashioned batteries, aren't there? There's a cracking picture there of a battery store. Hundreds and hundreds of batteries just chucked in a line. They're great. Regular checks you need to make on batteries. Most of these are the lead acid ones, aren't they? So you need to check the voltage is good. Okay, to ensure they're within an acceptable range. Leak detections. We don't want that acid dripping all over the place. It's not very pleasant stuff. Okay, it's going to damage other equipment. Check for corrosion. And check the calibrations of the batteries to make sure they can perform within the manufacturer's recommendations. Some of the things you might want to add on to that, things such as a replacement schedule. We know batteries don't last forever, do they? How long does your car battery last you? Nowadays, you're probably going to get 5 to 6 years. Yeah, George, thank you very much. The man at the post, sorry, the check's in the post for that one. About 5 years. Possibly a bit longer, depending on the quality of the battery. Yeah. So we should have a replacement schedule booked in, already basically booked in to say, Comes to 4.5 years, I want all those batteries replaced. Can be expensive, but it's got to be done. And of course, there's things like our other power equipment. Yes, we need to check things like our ATS, our automatic transfer switch. That's the one that kicks us over from the mains coming in to our UPS and diesel generators when the system falls over. You can also do tests on the static transfer switch. Did we cover, is an idea, did we cover a ATS and an STS and the difference between the two? Automatic transfer switch and a static transfer switch. You can type in, yes, we did, Dave, or no, we didn't. Or you can say, can you remind me, Dave? That's allowable. Thank you, George. I think some review would be good. The big difference between the two is speed and cost. It's as simple as that. Probably. An ATS relies on a mechanical method of the power kicking across. Okay, so it could be not a manual switch, they're automatic. So an ATS will basically have a mechanical switch that flicks across and therefore changes the power in a different direction. An STS, static, don't know why it's called a static one, probably because there's no moving parts. Static transfer switch is done through an electrical method. So there's an electrical change that basically then forces the power in a different direction. Now the difference is speeds. ATFs, I think, are about 1,000th of a second, whereas STSs are pretty instantaneous. They do exactly the same thing. The ATS and the STS do exactly the same thing. They basically, this is for you, Freddie, and everyone. So they will basically convert, you know, when your main power is coming in for your building, if that gets cut, your ATS and your STS, because you'll have one or the other. It's that responsibility of that piece of hardware that simply goes, I've got no power coming in my main line. Bang, I'm onto my UPS diesel generator system. And that's where it starts drawing its power from. And when the main power line comes back on, it then goes, right, I'm going to switch it back over. As I say, the big difference between the two is the speed at which they switch over. STSs are pretty much instantaneous because there is no moving part that flicks across. There's no switch that goes down and goes, right, I'm onto the other one. ATS, although it says automatic, yes, it is automatic, so you don't have to do it in either. The ATS one will literally have a moving part that will shift across to basically cut it across to the other sensor, the other power source. Copy makes sense. Fantastic. Right, here we go then. Great stuff. So, power distribution units. Right, who can tell me, as a recap, who can tell me where my power distribution units are in my data center? Right, so it's Greg. Look at that textbook answer. Whereabouts in my white space, my PDUs? Frida's gone one step further, red zone and white space. Should be on the other rack, Patrick. Yeah, fantastic. I can see George typing, so I'm not diving straight in there. Well, George stopped typing now. It'll flash up in a second and I'll... PDUs are basically the power distribution unit. Those are the two racks of your multiple power sockets that live down the side of your racks. So each of your racks will have one on the left, one on the right. And the reason we do that is because ideally the one on the left goes to a power unit on the left-hand side of the building, the one on the right goes to the power unit on the right-hand side of the room. Okay, so they come from different sources. And then when you have a server with two power sockets, you plug one in the left and one in the right. Strange enough, people call them A and B. Well, that's simple, isn't it? A or B ones. So they need to be inspected. Is it coming slightly loose? Are the cables good? Is there any wear and tear? Remember, a lot of time within data centers, people are moving things around. So they can jostle things. If you're feeding cables through, mounting servers, racking things such as the UPSs and other heavy devices, yeah, it's possible they could get a little bit jostled. A little bit of jostling, they might work a few things loose. So general preventative maintenance, to have a little look around your racks every now and again, check them all out. It's a great idea. And they won't do the whole data center at once. They won't go, yep, let's all go and check all the PDUs. They will go, okay, we're going to segment it up each month. We're going to make sure we do one row of servers. Well, one room or something similar to that. So I think we're going to go through preventative maintenance for HVAC, and then we'll go for our 15-minute break for a coffee and a snack. So we should be able to cover this quite easily. Loving the questions, by the way, people. This is fantastic stuff. So HVAC, we know air conditioning, keeping things cooled and looking after our air is critically important in a data center. So again, we basically need to maintain that and make sure they are working. Replacing your filters 30 to 90 days. So regularly replacing the air filter maintains the clean air going through, maintains that easy flow of air through it. Easy flow of air then means we can basically keep things cool. Leak checks. We know HVAC systems either have water or cooling system. They can be air or they can be water based. So it is important that we check those ducts, make sure there isn't any leaks. Okay, if there is a refrigerant leak and the refrigerant is down, well, we need to top it up. So check our refrigerant level is low. Check that the drain clog is available. So you're going to make sure that isn't clear, isn't blocked in any way. And it's worth checking the thermostat. We know the thermostat is basically an electronic device. Okay, it is possible that electronic device is faulty and it's reporting the wrong temperatures. So we can go along either with a thermal imager or with another thermometer that we've calibrated previously, and we can check to see that that thermostat is basically producing the right temperatures. As with everything else in our data center, a visual inspection, check the electrical system's okay, inspect the ducts to make sure there's no eggs basically laying in there, no birds decided to nest in any of your ducts. And inspect the fans to make sure that things are moving, everything is lubricated properly, and there's no shaking in any of those items. Again, it's another case where we could potentially fit a vibration sensor on it to cover us. But if the vibration sensor is going to cost us a lot of money, well, we should just be able to physically go and check it. That might save us some cash. Clean coils is another one. So make sure the evaporation is working properly. And make sure the condenser coil is working perfectly. And that will obviously make it much more efficient. Therefore, we use less energy and therefore we save ourselves money. Have you got any questions about HVAC maintenance? Okay, that sounds absolutely perfect. I think what we'll do now is if we can drop into a 15-minute break. And that kind of gets you back a bit after 1/4 past, doesn't it? 16 minutes past, depending on how quickly the timer goes on.
All right. Sounds good, David. All right, guys, I'll start the break. Just give me one moment here. We'll see everyone back at 1:16.
And hopefully we're going to get some great boogie music.
No pressure.
Oh, I was listening to it as well. I know it's some good tunes. Thank you very much for the tune selection today, Megan. Well, on with the show, as they say. So let's have a thumbs up from everyone. Fastest fingers first. Who can see the preventative maintenance for fire suppressant equipment? Can hear Daniel, Tang, George, Yinka, B, Patrick. Robert's good. Thank you very much. Christopher, Melissa, lovely. Okay, that's great. Okay, so let's crack through this. So we're still really talking about some preventative maintenance because this is the one that we control. This is the one we have the most control over and need to schedule in. So we talk about our fire systems in here. Okay, so fire suppressant systems, they need to be maintained. They need to be maintained and they need to be looked after. Okay, so sprinkler inspection, so maintenance of a sprinkler system. Okay, within data centers, you are not likely to find a mass of sprinklers. They will be in the general areas potentially, but they're not going to be on the main data center floors for obvious reasons. We won't go into those. You need to verify the function of the fire alarms. Yes, fire alarm systems can be tested. We can check each individual fire alarm point, you know, the magic ones that have break glass on them. There is test keys for each of those, so you can go around, you can test that, make sure it's working, see that it lights up the relevant part on board, because they have fire alarm boards that tell you where the fire has basically started or where the fire signal has basically been sent off at. Test your smoke detection systems. Yes, we all know that we can trigger these at home, can't we, by pushing a little red button or a grey button, depending which one you have. It makes a beautiful noisy beeping sound, probably turns on a light or something like that as well. They need to be tested regularly. Okay, failure to test this is just going to end up in a nightmare, isn't it? If things go wrong and you found out you haven't tested these systems, then it all ends up, you know, pretty much in tears for once, for a better word. And as we mentioned right at the start of the lecture, wasn't it? Thank you very much for whoever mentioned that. Give yourself a bonus sweet. They have regular review intervals on those. They have expiry dates. They also have a little gauge on there that is set round. If that is basically in the green area, we're laughing, that's good, we can check it. If they've been discharged, yes, it tends to drift into the red area, at which point that needs to be replaced. So we need to get those things sorted. So make sure they are ready for use in the right location, not used as door stops. So many people in data centers grab one of these, stick it by the door, leave the door open. Okay, you're not helping the air conditioning, you're not helping health and safety. You know, they basically need to be left on the wall where they're supposed to be. Any questions about fire prevention systems? And in terms of their maintenance, certainly. Because of the very nature of fire prevention systems, a lot of the maintenance, a lot of the routine maintenance schedule of preventative maintenance will be visual inspections. It will be walking around to see if things are okay. Are all the needles still in the green? Are there any damages? Are there any leakages? So it's very much that sort of a thing. I see some people typing some questions there. Let's see if they can come up with things. We're an amazing first half of the lecture with loads of questions and comments and things coming through. Let's see what we can do. Okay, so let's drift on then. So data center cleaning. What's it got to do with us about cleaning the data center? Good question asked from everyone there, I think, isn't it? Okay, maintenance and cleaning, hygienic environments. Yes, it is important. It's important we do not so much leaving our, we're not talking basically about leaving our sandwiches in the fridge for a week and things like that. We're talking about regular cleaning processes for things like vacuuming. I got my tongue stuck there, didn't I? Vacuuming with what's known as a HEPA filter. So that's just a really decent particle filter. Okay. It's a high efficiency particle. Well, I want to say extractor, but it's not, is it? Which is basically used for cleaning the floors, microfiber towels and things like that. It's important we keep a clean environment because remember, all the dust and everything that is in there will end up going into one of our systems. It'll go into our server, okay, which then means our server fans are going to run less efficiently if it basically clogs up our cooling system. It'll go into our HVAC, which is what HVACs are designed for, essentially to take out all that dust. But it means the HVAC filter is then going to get clogged more often. Okay, so it's important that we do consider those areas. ASHRA basically recommend that annual subfloor cleaning using specialist critical cleaning vacuums and fluids are used basically to clean the concrete subfloor So the subfloor is the piece below your raised flooring. So you have a concrete subfloor, raised flooring where you run all your cables, and then above that you basically sit all your data centers, don't you? And that helps remove all the dust and everything like that from underfloor concrete. Thank you very much, Patrick. I knew someone would look at it in the end. High efficiency particulate air, or high efficiently particulate arresting. So, okay, the names I'm finding. It's basically, it talks about the air filter. It's the air filter that's in there. I think it's high efficiency particulate and then A for something else. So data center cleaning, we know it's got to be done. It's a bit of a chore, yes, but it's going to be our responsibility. If you're a NOC member of staff, yeah, part of your duties is going to be going around, not as a cleaner, but we're doing, you know, the other bits on there, aren't we? We're making sure that things aren't there. Why else do you think running around the floor, checking things are clean and tidy is important? Yeah, I'm going to ask a beautiful question for you all now. Oh, there's a very good question there. Kadir basically says, I'm still wondering, since we've received a lot of content and safety and maintenance, are technicians expected to handle those responsibilities as well? Or will our daily duties be more focused on IT related work? I still have a question now because I work in a data center, but my tasks are mainly IT related stuff. A lot of that depends. The answer depends on the size of the data center. If you're in a small data center, you know full well there are going to be loads of tasks that very few people are going to be doing. So you will be expected to do things like checking your HVAC system, changing the air conditioning units, because there's not a lot of people to do that. As you get to bigger and bigger data centers, then the roles become more specialist. So, you know, if you're sat on the IT related work for a data center that's large, yeah, you focus on just that. And then you have a HVAC expert who will be doing all the HVAC maintenance work, you know, and they could be total experts on that because they've got enough to keep them busy all year doing that one job. So it depends on the size of the data center. We, as a training center, will cover all of these because we're not sure exactly which particular position you will end up going into from here. The second question there is, I'm asking about the goal of this program. What will be the result of this program? A maintenance technician or a data center IT technician? Maintenance is part of IT. You got to remember that. Keeping these things running, as in maintenance prevention, predictive maintenance, and reactive maintenance, are all IT roles. Switching that hard disk drive out when it breaks is reactive maintenance. Running the checks on the system, so going around and checking things such as the diesel generator, is preventative maintenance. It probably falls outside what I'd normally consider IT, but certainly walking around the data center racks and making sure the cables aren't loose and there's no damage to any of the electrical cable systems is very much an IT position. And it's something that I've seen many a NOC staff do. But bear in mind, when I worked at IMART, the NOC staff were in charge of data center checks across the board. So they did the HVAC, they did the fire safety systems, they did the diesel generator checks. So they did all of those items as well as essentially the NOC staff, which basically dealt with the networking and the operation centers across the board. And that was probably a smaller data center. Bearing in mind their data center shifts were probably 6 to 7 people on each shift running that data center for NOC room. And of course, you can imagine Amazons are a little bit bigger than that, aren't they? So they're probably not asking you to do so many different tasks. They're probably asking you to specialize more in one. I hope that helps there, Kadir. Okay, so we kind of said, why is checking the data center so important? Why is making it clean, safe environment so important, didn't we? Who can guess what percentage of insurance claims are made through tripping in the workplace? Just smash a number into chat if you fancy. Right, Craig's 70, Daniel's 65, Robert's enough. I looked up the number earlier today just to make sure I wasn't quite stretching things too much or too little. You people are smashing it right at the top there. It's actually in terms of we have to deal with I had to deal with the non-lethal accidents in the workplace question. I think that's really what I asked on there. And 40% are simple trips. I know 70% is a massive amount. 40% are simple trips. Okay, so as you're walking around a data center, make sure that floor panel that you've lifted out is put back properly. Make sure when you are taking a floor panel out, you've got a little warning sign, hazard warning sign either side. Make sure you haven't just draped a cable across the floor. Yeah, warehouse safety. If you're in a warehouse, yeah, I can imagine things are going to be a lot higher than if you're wandering around a data center. Data centers should be nice, clean, organized, tidy locations. Warehouses, on the other hand, because of the general nature of it, will have different bits and pieces all over the chip shop, won't they? So potentially you could have more trips and stuff in a warehouse environment. I like that fact, Daniel. That's funny, fantastic, Daniel Westmore. Yeah, most accidents are related to elevation changes of just 1/2 inch. Wow, that's like tripping over a broomstick, isn't it, or something like that? Okay, that was a good example. Okay, let's push on through this then. So they kind of drop this into daily IT tasks. Okay, so let's talk about the third lesson. This is really identifying what we consider to be daily IT tasks and monitoring activities. Okay, this probably helps with Kadir here, basically answering a few of these questions. Some of these tasks, preventative maintenance stuff, keeping the indoor climate stable. Okay, making sure air conditioning is turned to the right level. Cleanliness, like not making sure the trip hazards are out of the way. Safety checks. That's about our materials and hazardous material stuff, isn't it? Visual inspections or wandering around checking things, isn't it? Emergency preparedness, so disaster recovery planning and tests. Do you do a fire safety drill once a week? Once a month? Do you prepare for other things? And then monitoring systems. So those tend to be sort of the daily IT tasks that we have. So they kind of break into things such as your indoor climate checks. We all like to work in a comfortable environment. So we need to monitor the temperature, the humidity, the dew point and make sure they're done. These tend to fall as checks. A lot of these are automated. And you can adjust these as needed and you can adjust them remotely rather than having to go to individual areas. Cleanliness, as we've said, daily inspection of cleanliness is important. Clean dust and particulates immediately. Okay, that's a little bit excessive, I think. Yes, we kind of accept a little bit of dust, but yes, we should make sure we are not running around in a heavy dusty environment. We know that particulates, the small items of dust, will compromise our equipment. And we do our safety checks. So all electrical equipment needs to be closed properly. You make sure the lid is basically properly on the server when you're dealing with it. You don't want arc flash to injure an employee. Make sure your floors or tiles are in place and no one can trip over those items. And we want to make sure that no unauthorized personnel can access the data center. Things such as leaving doors open, as I said, propped open by a fire hydrant. It's quite a common thing. If you've got door access that you're bleeping yourself in for, propping that open allows anyone to walk into that area, which is a massive red flag for data centers. And then some visual inspections. These tend to be the preventative daily tasks we're going through here. This is stuff that when you arrive in the data center, one of you will put their hand up on your shift. One of you will put a hand up and go, right, I'm going to do a full visual inspection of the entire data center floor. And they'll simply walk out around the entire floor to check to see if there's any alarms going off. Are there any disk drive lights that are flashing red? Is the temperature okay, or are they feeling anything? Is there any abnormal sounds from any of the fans? Are any of the fans running crazy or making horrible vibrations in our HVAC system? Are there any lights out in the building? All those sort of visual inspections can be done. And then emergency preparedness. We need to make sure every day that we know that that documentation is in the right place. So I kind of mentioned a while ago a grab bag, didn't I, for emergency situations. Is that grab bag in the right place? Does it contain all the right books? Or has someone moved it because they were playing with it or updating it or reading through it? Okay, it's got to be in the right place when you start your shifts. And these tend to happen daily tasks. And when we are doing daily tasks, and indeed when we are doing all of our preventative maintenance tasks that we've mentioned, they need to be recorded. So we need to record that they have been done, who has done them, when they've been done. Okay, so we need to basically record those so that we can then basically look back. We've got an audit trail that we can basically say, yes, we did check everything was okay. We were doing things, we are complying with all the regulations that we need. And that builds customer confidence in us, because that's really what we're after. Why are people giving us their data? Because they're confident that our processes and practices are top drawer, and we can demonstrate that with these particular items. Any questions around that end of things? Good stuff. I can't see anything coming up in live chat, so I'm going to pop on then. So monitoring systems. Most of the time, if you're in a knock center, you will spend in the monitoring systems. You will spend your time checking things are running properly and smoothly and basically responding to any particular issues. So we need to make sure that monitoring systems are working okay. So we need to check whether or not the generator has been run. Did it get run in the last 24 hours? And if so, why? Was there a transfer of power to the UPS systems? Or were we beautiful over the last 24 hours or at any point? Is our HVAC control system working okay? Are the temperature, humidity, and dew point correct? Okay, and again, our battery monitoring system. So you can see there's a whole load of monitoring systems that we just need to glance at and check are okay. Most of these, as you've seen in the image, well, it's not a very good wallboard, but will probably be on a wallboard somewhere in the data centers. And as I've mentioned there, there's down at the bottom, number 9, the good old-fashioned walkthrough, a visual inspection of the data center. Normally when you come on shift, as I said, someone will volunteer and they'll go for a walkthrough to check everything is okay. Kadir, you say you work in a data center at the moment? And if so, do you ever do a walkthrough of the data center, or is it? You said you are kind of fairly limited to what is given there. I think several people are typing questions, which is great. I'll let you finish typing though. I'm sipping my lovely coffee today. B says, what's the dress attire typically, since they're hot and cold areas? Oh, I think I mentioned this before. It's very interesting. Whenever I worked at IMR and went into a data center and places like that, people would always come in with a jacket. Doesn't matter how hot it was outside. Remember, you're in a closed environment. Okay, so generally you've got fairly chilly because the air conditioning's on. It's a comfortable temperature at your desk. When you go into the cold aisle, it's freezing. Well, it's not freezing. It's cold. So if you're spending long periods, more than about 20 or 30 minutes in the cold aisle, you're going to bring a jumper or something you put over the top. to keep yourself a little bit warmer. In terms of other dress codes, yeah, most of them will actually give you safety gear. I made sure that every member of staff had the steel toe cap boots, stroke shoes, because they do them in shoes nowadays as well. So steel toe cap shoes. That meant if you did accidentally drop a server or something on your foot, you weren't likely to lose any toes. Other than that, they tend to be fairly smart casual. I mean, they're not even smart casual. Mark said as long as you didn't wear a pair of ripped jeans, you're pretty much all right. So a lot of them were simple polo shirts. Sometimes the polo shirts are actually issued by the companies. So you wander around in all matching polo shirts, pair of trousers, slacks, that sort of thing. Patrick's asking a question there. Providing nothing is getting installed, how often are we actually on the data center floor versus a control and monitor room? Patrick, I'm going to skip that one. I cannot answer that because I don't know which data center you're going to go into. It will vary massively, I'd imagine, and depending on the role you've got. My experience when I was literally through IMARC was that potentially a NOC engineer, first level NOC engineer, would spend about 40% of his time physically on the data center floor. And the rest of the time they were working with devices that were on the data center floor. So they're basically doing remote management of systems. Possibly a bit less than that. Yeah, my idea with this is I believe this course, and I could be wrong here, but I probably shouldn't really go too much into it, is that, and someone will correct me, is that this course is basically titled and designed to give you all the skills and all the knowledge to walk into a data center position. Now that data center position, because there is so varied in terms of what you will actually be asked to do in the data center, as I've said, big data centers, you'll be very specialized. Small data centers, you will do the lot. We throw the lot at you. So you will have a good grounding across everything that you will be expected to do within a data center. And that then gets you the foot in the door for where you want to go then. B says, I see the guy in a picture of the jacket. Is it this one? This, yeah. I mean, most of the floors will be regular temperature, B. You know, it will just be like office temperatures, basically in the NOC or the operations center. Only when you hit the data floors that then you basically have the cold aisles. Matching activities. Yinka, I was just reading that. Kindly take a second look at the matching activity. Oh, no, I don't think we're going to go through that matching activity. Is that on? That was on one of the end of one of the sections, wasn't it? We can have a quick chat about that later. I kind of want to get to the end of the monitoring systems, other considerations. Then we've got a beautiful case study I'd like to get through, Yinka, if that's okay. Happy to pick that up with you later, Yinka, if that's good. Okay, perfect. So that's monitoring systems. And then, of course, there's other considerations. As I say, reporting is really important in data centers, regardless of what you're doing, both for security purposes and for maintenance. So if we have maintenance routines, we need to make sure these are stored and recorded. Okay, the reports will go up the chain of command. Someone at the top will basically read them, make sure everything has been ticked. If things aren't getting ticked, well, hold on, something could go wrong. If we're failing on a maintenance routine, and that system fails, well, who's going to be in trouble? It's going to be the person that's supposed to do that maintenance routine. Data centers, we know, tend to be staffed 24/7. Okay. And we do a lot of maintenance tasks, what is considered to be off-peak. But what's off-peak for a data center nowadays? We're running 24/7. There's not a lot of off-peak. But that, of course, depends on what data center you are and where you are running. Amazon that does 24/7, that provides everything. Yeah, high-end all the time, isn't it? If you work for potentially in a data center for someone like NATS, there's less flights happen overnight. So they will probably have a bit of a lull overnight in terms of what you can and can't do. So they'll do a lot of maintenance overnight. Okay, so we're now going to have a look at a case study. This is where you guys get to have a bit of fun here. Okay, so we have a power outage incident case study here. So I'm going to give you, should we have 5 minutes to read through this? 5 minutes should be good. So 5 minutes to read through this. As far as the investigation, can we focus on the first task? So the idea is to read through that, and I want to come back with an analysis of the root cause of the incident and identify the specific preventative maintenance and daily task failures. And then we'll basically poke those into live chat. So we're not after anything super complicated. I wouldn't ask you to do too much. So literally going to come back with something like this, where you've got a list of root causes that you believe and a list of preventative maintenance that failed and a list of daily tasks that failed. Anyone got any questions around what you're being asked to do there? Are you all good? Thumbs up if you're all good. If I don't get any thumbs up, I know you've all just dived straight into it. I know how keen you are at times. Patrick's grand, that's good. Any questions from anyone? Anyone not understand what you're being asked to do? Great stuff. So I've got 44 minutes past, so we're coming back at, well, we'll have a chat about 50 minutes past, yeah? Speak to you all soon. You will notice there is more than one task on here. Let's focus on the first task, by the way. Let's just crack the first task in, and then we can kind of have a look at the other tasks as well, because I'd love to go through those as well, people. We're about a little bit over halfway through, people, so hopefully we're getting a few answers and a few good things in the root causes, preventative maintenance failures, and daily task failures. Okay, we're coming up to the time I said we come back. Put your hand up if you need some more time. I'm happy to give you some more time because we're quite relaxed on time today. I can see a couple of you already typing in answers, which is great. If I get a hand up for more time, I can give you another couple of minutes without any problems today. Good, no hands up from anyone. So let's crack through this then. Okay, so I can see a couple of you basically typed in some answers already. Let's kind of try and put it in a bit of an organized state here. So let's look at the root causes we've got here. Stefan was first, so let's read from the top there then. Okay, so not changing the fuel filter, not checking the UPS with a thermal scan, not enough fuel supply. These are definitely going to cause problems, aren't they? Kadir says the disaster recovery and emergency response plans were outdated and untested, delaying response effectively. Yeah, very good. Greg's added the outage came from many factors. So this is where we're really after. So the root cause came from many factors like overdue oil change, clogged fuel filters, fuel starvation and overheating of generators, and no thermal scan of the UPS. These are great answers, people. This is fantastic stuff. Kadir then adds no daily log of visual inspections of leaks. So again, that's a daily task failure, isn't it? Not logging it means it probably didn't happen. Victor's got some good stuff in there. Hold on, Victor. Let me just read through that. Root cause would be a complete neglect of the data center as a whole. Lovely. I love that answer. No maintenance or possibly no maintenance plan in place. I think they had a maintenance plan in place from it. I think they would have had a maintenance plan. We assume they had, yeah. But definitely no changing of the oil over such a long time. Feels like running the data center. Make me money until don't. A lot of things is all about the money. Yes, it does cost to do some of these things, and therefore some people do think, well, we'll just skip it and save the money. No, it's not a good plan. B says one of the generators unexpectedly shut down due to a fuel supply issue. Yes, certainly that's going to be a problem, isn't it? This almost sounds like a potential OVH cloud disaster. Could well be. Okay, so when I look through what they've got, these are kind of, oh, here we go. Patrick's now adding in. Patrick, root cause. Oh, here we go. Yinka. Yinka's nailed it. Thank you very much, Yinka. I'm going to read Patrick's first, Yinka. Patrick says root cause could be said to be the exciting incident of the thunderstorm and the fail of the utility power, essentially out of the DC's control. Yeah, that's a good comment. Yeah, beyond that point, well-maintained data center infrastructure should be in place to handle the situation. I suppose the first link in the chain failure was the first generator fuel supply issue, definitely. Well, Yinka's nicely bulleted them out, so I'm going to read those out for you. So root cause, he's got neglect and preventative maintenance. Failure to adhere to scheduled maintenance. So they failed to adhere to the scheduled maintenance and critical power infrastructure. That creates a vulnerability that essentially led to a system failure. Inadequate monitoring and inspections. Yeah, definitely. Inadequate monitoring inspection. Lack of consistent daily monitoring and visual inspections led to missed early warning signs of the potential problem. Outdated emergency preparedness. The disaster recovery plan was not current, not tested, not current. All these things we kind of go on about. These are daily things. Lack of accountability. Okay, there appears to be a lack of strong culture of accountability regardless of things. Definitely. So that's fantastic, Inka. The ones that I kind of noted down myself were for the root cause. I kind of got, yeah, again, like you echoed there, neglected preventative maintenance. Okay, they didn't maintain that generator properly. They overdrew oil change was there. The filter replacement didn't happen. That essentially was related to a clogged fuel filter, not changed during the scheduled maintenance. Lack of thermal scanning and capability testing in the UPS systems. Okay, and the batteries. Inconsistent daily monitoring and visual inspection. Failure to doing these simple things. Outdated and untested emergency preparedness and disaster recovery. Yeah, how much do these things cost to actually do? How much does it cost to change an oil filter? Okay, I mean, oil filters are okay for diesel generators of this sort of size. Yeah, $20, $30, $40. Changing it and an oil filter on these things, because they're always changed regularly, is quite easy. It's not like climbing into your engine of a car. They're pretty much sticking out the side job, aren't they? Probably takes 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Couple of rags, you'll be all right. So for that, essentially, they're losing that generator because they have not performed the simple maintenance tasks that doesn't take very long. It doesn't cost them loads of money, but it costs them money now, doesn't it? Great work, Inka. So has anyone got, let's move down to preventative maintenance failures. I think we've kind of hit this pretty much anyway. So which preventative maintenance failures did we fail to do? I've kind of managed to list 3 down. It'd be great if someone basically smashed a couple of those in. We kind of cover it pretty much in the start, don't we? Yeah, I love that maintenance plan. Yes, it's great, isn't it? See Yinka type. Let's see if you smashed it out of the park again, shall we? So we're currently just listing the preventive maintenance failures that basically, well, essentially those ones that didn't work, didn't happen. I think we've hit most of those, haven't we? Yeah, we did. I can see that we've hit most of those at the top there. There's a lot of replication there. So the preventative maintenance, specifically the ones that were on the preventative maintenance tasks were, yes, they failed to make the oil change and the filter replacement. That is something that should have happened during the preventive maintenance checks. They failed to replace a clogged fuel filter. That should have been noticed during that check. And they failed to have a regular thermal scanning and capacity test of the UPS system. So Yinka's still typing there. Ah, I should have given you a couple more seconds, shouldn't I, Yinka? My apologies. Okay, so yes, the overall oil change and the filter replacement, definitely a big failure. Yinka, normally we send out a couple of virtual sweeties. I think you're about to get a bucket load, aren't you? Well done, that's fantastic. UPS system batteries, lack of thermal scanning, lack of capacity testing. Boom. Great work. What about the daily tasks then? Has anyone got a couple of daily tasks? I wrote 2 down when I went through this. That's some good documentation there, Kadir. I love that sort of stuff. That's really useful to see. Yeah, a couple of you typing in there, so I won't try and steal anyone's thunder by jumping in there. Yeah, so Daniel Westmore basically smashes in there. So daily monitoring and visual inspection have been inconsistently failing to identify warning signs and potential issues. Yes, lack of thorough inspections, no one bothering to actually check it through, and no one looking at it. Patrick, we refer to UPS as the uninterruptible power supply. Yes, so that includes essentially what the generators do. So don't think when we use UPS in terms of what we talk about for a data center, we are using that term as an uninterruptible power supply, meaning the batteries that will basically keep it running and the diesel generators. Generally, a UPS battery, as in the battery systems. Okay, let's give this example. At IMART, the battery center, and bear in mind they were battery rooms. We're not talking small centers here. The battery rooms they had, they believed on that battery set, they would probably get 15 to 20, well, not probably, that was what they calculated, 15 to 20 minutes power out of those batteries before the batteries were dead and there was nothing in. So what that gave is that gave the data center 15 to 20 minutes to get the diesel generators online. Okay, bearing in mind the diesel generators are supposed to kick in within 30 seconds. That kind of gives them a little bit of leeway, doesn't it? And they had, what was it, N+2, I believe they had at their data center. So they had 2 spare diesel generators in case 2 of them didn't fire up. Now they know they can run those diesel generators and it will power enough power to run that data center as long as they've got enough diesel going into those generators. So they believed they can actually run those diesel generators for 5 days with the diesel supplies that they currently had in that data center. So within 5 days, they're out of diesel, the whole thing's dropped. Does that answer that one for you, Patrick? They're literally, the batteries are there literally to support the system while it cuts over to the diesel generators. Okay, because there's always going to be a lag between you losing that main power into the building and the diesel generators starting up, because they're an engine essentially. So yes, the batteries are sat there going, yeah, let's keep the power going to the data center while we basically keep the diesel generators on, and then the diesel generators take over and the batteries then shut off. So the batteries are only sort of a temporary load. I love these questions. Those are great, Patrick. George typing a few things in there. Okay, so we're happy to drive on. So it's basically an energy placeholder as a main power is restored. Yes, that's essentially it. The idea, of course, with the whole thing is that we are going to eventually get back onto the mains power. How long does it take the mains power to come back? Depends exactly where the fault is. Okay, so it's one of those horrible pieces of string questions, isn't it? If a power service isn't restored within 24 hours, all of a sudden you're getting very concerned. Most of them, most outages are minutes to hours, not days, for sure. Well, depending on where it is, for obvious reasons. Okay, he fancies a crack at number 2 then. There was task 1. Task 2, develop a comprehensive preventative maintenance plan for the data center's power system. Okay, so we're talking about a maintenance plan for the data center's power system. Includes specifying the tasks and frequency. You can make this up as you go along. So it's a fun task to do. There's no right, there's no wrong. And a responsible party for each. So you can put that in a little table, or you can basically just list them out. Feel free to just smash one each if you want. What do we need as a preventative maintenance plan? Maybe, yeah, do you think you could do it as a table? Very happy for things to come in any format you can manage. Yinky's done some fantastic work, so I'm not going to step in your way. It's great stuff you've been putting in. So I've kicked one in here. And that's create in Word or document. You basically just pick something like this. I've done one here. Battery room needs to have a thermal scan, needs to be done weekly, and it's done by the NOC staff. So that's just one. Remember, I'm only writing an individual one. If you want to write a complete list, yeah, we can. If you want to just do one or two and smash them into the live chat, that's the sort of format I'm sort of after. You can feel free to give it more details if you need. Patrick basically asked a question there. Certain people or our staff should be assigned specific roles and responsibilities for maintenance, and leadership should have a responsibility to check that those under them are meeting those roles. That is totally right. We're basically after the person that's going to do the job, not the person that's going to check that the job is done. So I've put down knock staff here. I probably should have put down battery room qualified knock staff or verified knock staff. Greg's got a good one there. Thank you very much, Greg. Generator oil and filter change every 250 to 500 hours by a facilities engineer. Fuel quality testing quarterly by the maintenance team. Fantastic. So these are things we're after you putting in. So it's really about you. The idea here is just to engage you and have you thinking about what would be done, how often you'd have it done, and who should be responsible for it. Kadir basically says using an ITSM tool for inventory records. Yes, because we need to know, I'm hoping you're thinking the same way as me, Kadir, is we need to know how much diesel is actually in the systems, don't we? So that could basically fall under our inventory. We need to know our batteries are still good, so that can fall under our inventory as well. And then it's just a case of how often would we monitor this? How often would we inspect what that basically ITSM tool is telling us? Every day, I guess. If you've got an automated monitoring tool, yeah, why not check it every day? It's as simple as that, isn't it? Victor says, easy, have a log so everyone knows what was done and when it was missing. I'm reading everybody's responses. Yeah, if the thermal scan was done Monday last week, we are overdue. Documentation is extremely important, yes. And these logs do tend to follow an electric format, although I have seen them done as a paper format. Most famous, this is one everyone's seen. Okay. Most famous paper log ever seen is basically the one on the toilet, isn't it? Whenever you walk into a public toilet, on the wall, there's a magic thing that says this toilet was checked and cleaned by such and such on such and such a date. Everyone's seen those logs. We're doing the same thing in the data center. We're probably doing it electrically, but yeah, that log, and there should be a red flag. If you're using an ITSM system, like Kadir says, there should be a red flag that says this hasn't been done today. Why is it not being done? And then you get a notification goes to someone's manager, and someone's manager picks up the phone and probably has a chat with the knock leader at the time, the shift leader, to say, what are you playing at? Clipboard of accountability. I love it, Daniel Westmore. Good. Okay, so do we all think, thumbs up, do we all think we could write one or two things that they basically put on that particular maintenance plan for a data center? If we do, we can kind of shuffle onto the third. Well, I guess we kind of covered three because we did the maintenance procedure for a daily, didn't we? We said how often would they actually happen? Okay, let's skip ahead to number 4 there. So really what I want to ask you now, I can see Daniel Westmore typing, it'd be fantastic anyway. I'm going to ask you here. So number 4, propose measures to improve documentation, reporting and compliance within industrial standards and regulations relating to data center operation. Well, that's a big question, isn't it? It's a big ask. How would you propose to improve the documentation on that area? I'm going to throw a bonus couple of sweeties to anyone who can tell me who is a regulatory body for this industry. Depends which. I probably should. It depends which country you're from, doesn't it? Yeah, it's a great answer. It's good that you're actually looking at it. That's fantastic. Who's a regulatory body for looking after data centers in your area? Yeah, they're going to differ from country to country. I appreciate that. It's just good to have a little think about it, isn't it? Well, one of the main regulatory bodies we have over in the States is ASHRAE, so ASHRAE, and they basically maintain certain standards for the industry. Good stuff. Okay, I'm liking this. This is good. Question number 5 could be interesting, couldn't it? Question number 5 is about discuss some strategies for fostering a culture of accountability and adherence to maintenance routines among data center staff. How would you encourage people? Oh, I love Yinka. There's a whole bucket of sweets coming your way. Yinka says, standardized reporting templates. I develop a template for maintaining reports, inspecting logs, incident reports, capacity testing results. This ensures consistency and completeness of information. Yinka, that's fantastic. This is what we're after. That's great. Automated alerts and reminders. Yes, we know if you use an ITSM system, or indeed any other system, you could probably write one in yourself for a web-based application, couldn't you? You can basically have automated alerts and reminders that's basically going to pop up people and say, look, have you done this data center? Have you done this particular test? Have you confirmed it? Tick in a box. And that's going to reduce a lot of the risk and increase oversight. Annie Westmore, thank you very much for posting those other companies up there, those basic governing bodies. Yes, some of those are very relevant. Training or drills, Greg basically suggests for increasing. Yes, give them training, give them drills. Most maintenance tasks, this is very true, and it's very horrible to say this. Most maintenance tasks that are missed and forgotten and not done are because people do not want to do them. People do not want to do the things because they don't know how to, because they're unsure how to do those things. So potentially the person hasn't changed that oil filter because they just don't remember how to do it. They've forgotten how to do it. They don't want to do it. People like doing things they can do well. Man, if you can change the oil filter in 10 minutes, bing, bang, bosh, off you go. Yeah, you go and do it, wouldn't you? Sunny day, out in the fresh air, change the oil filter, job done. It's going to take that for a smoke and a pancake because you saved yourself some time. But yes, we're looking at these sort of things, aren't we? So increase the training, make sure people know how to do it. Use the buddy system, 4 eyes as we called it, I think, during one of the systems. So you have 2 people that go there. If you're changing an oil filter, send 2 people out to do it. That way, if one person is struggling or not quite sure, the other person can back them up and give them some support. Okay, making it a team responsibility. Send out case studies to the staff. Yes, George, thank you very much. They can read about the consequences of not doing it. Weekly meetings, they probably get bored. I like it, Victor. I love weekly meetings, recognize and rewards, well done. Yes, that sort of thing is great. Pat people on the back. I'd say you can make it a bit competitive, but competition is always good, but sometimes it's not quite hitting the nail on the head, is it? Yinka's come up with another bucket of sweets, winning quotes there. Thank you very much. Training and empowerment, comprehensive training on maintenance, procedures and operations of equipment, and strong adherence. Yes, teach people how to do it, train them and make it their responsibility. If it's your responsibility and you're getting a pat on the back for it being done, you'll go and do it. If no one shows you a benefit of doing it, then you'll kind of go, well, why do I need to do it? What's the consequences of doing it? Which is literally what Victor said. Thank you very much. I will lead by example. Crikey, that's fantastic. You can come and sit on one of my leadership courses where we talk about the difference between leadership and management. Very much the case. I'll lead by example. I will do it so that everyone can see that I can do it. And then I will help everyone else to understand how to do it. Lead by example. Very much so. You could get third parties in to hire this system, yeah, and assess the systems, yeah. Have a third party coming in just to do a regular maintenance check to make sure things have done. Okay, well, that's good. Well, I don't know about you, but I've really enjoyed today. So as a conclusion, really coming down to it then, you feel free to carry on typing in the live chat with questions and comments and things like that. I'll just close it off here. So the lecture, basically we covered things like the maintenance, the power of the HVAC, what our maintenance routines should be. We also chatted a bit about some IT monitoring, climate testing. So some of the IT end of things. It's a bit woolly when we talk about IT nowadays, isn't it? We talked about the importance of cleanliness. 40% of accidents are simple trip hazards, not going up more than one step or something like that, isn't it? 1 inch, I think, was one of the comments that was made. Regular inspections. It's inspections, it's report, make sure the reports are good. Safety checks and the documentation. Yes, it all has to be documented. If it's not documented, it's not done. It's as simple as that. If you've gone out there and done all the hard work to change the oil filters, to inspect the oil, and you just walk back inside and you can't be bothered to fill out the documentation that says it's been done, then it's not been done. When the fault happens and something goes wrong in 2 months' time, everyone's going to look back and say, well, it wasn't done because you didn't fill out that small piece of paperwork. It doesn't take long and you can make paperwork really easy. Tick boxing stuff is great. Okay, that's perfect then. Okay, thank you very much. I can still see a couple of things going on in the live chat, so I won't stop any of that. I am going to drop you back to Megan now. You want any more comments, Megan, as we bring this lecture to a close?
Hey everyone, nothing on my end. Just want to reiterate the deadlines that I spoke about at the beginning in case anyone joined us late. We've got the mini project, the professional development assignment, as well as our upcoming knowledge checks. We also do have, 8 to 9 minutes left in class. So if there are any questions anybody has just about, working at a data center or David's experience, I just want to be able to open the floor if there are any questions there. So we'll give it a couple of minutes, David, to see in the live chat, to see if anybody has anything. And then, if not, we will let everyone go. But lots of time if anyone does have any questions about the industry or David's experience.
Yeah, very happy to chat about my time basically working through IMR and places like that, which are data centers, setting up their NOC teams, helping with their training and looking after things such as their maintenance schedules and things. Very happy if you have any questions based around those. Kadiros, as a data center technician, is it recommended to consider ITIL? I would always say consider ITIL. ITIL is a good foundation for a lot of IT infrastructure stuff. Okay, it's what's the way to put it? ITIL teaches you or encourages you to use some logical thinking for problems. And it's not just about troubleshooting. It's a logical approach to things that need to happen within IT. That's probably the best way that I would describe ITIL. Is it useful for data center staff? Yes, it's good to have the qualification. Is it useful for programmers? Yes. Is it useful for network engineers? Yes. Is it useful for security people? Yes. It's a great qualification, certainly in the industry. Daniel Westmore says, did you ever have new hires with zero previous experience in the industry? Yes, we did. We definitely did within IMART. Because of where we were located, it got a bit skinny in terms of people with any experience for coming into that particular location. So we would take people, and in all honesty, as a trainer and as sort of running a knock center, what you're really after is someone who's enthusiastic. And anyone who's enthusiastic can sit down and they can learn. And if they're keen to learn, they will pick it up. Okay. A lot of what data center is fantastic fun. It's working in IT. It is great structures. If you can read a set of instructions and follow a set of instructions, you can work in a knock. Okay, but you've got to remember you should be reading those instructions and not just making it up as you go along. There are times when I look at people. So we had one guy came in, don't get me wrong, he was smart as mustard, really bright, really intelligent bloke. When you sat down and talked to him about IT stuff, he was absolutely fantastic, a real whiz about some of this stuff. But in all honesty, I've had people who come in with absolutely zero experience that have probably just gone through a simple course like this, or had some experience around some things that have come in that I would have hired before him, because although he had all the knowledge and all the whiz bang greatness, he constantly went out into the data center and did things off his own back. You know, we'd have an issue with a network switch. He'd go in there, reconfigure the switch. 10 minutes later, we'd have a customer coming up saying, so why has my network switch died? What have you done? What has been changed? And the guy would be going around going, well, I just fixed it for you. You fixed it for one person, but you broke it for someone else because you didn't follow the procedure that we have. So I'd rather have that person you can bring in mold and make a perfect knock engineer than have someone who comes in and thinks they know it all.
Great, thanks, David. Looks like we've got a couple more people typing, so we'll just give them a moment here.
Sure.
Oh, great question, Butter. So we've got a question here, David. What can be the most challenging for someone with zero experience in this field?
But the hardest thing, I'm probably going to say the cold in the data center when you're walking through the cold aisle. Everything you will do in a knock center, you can learn to do. There is nothing that is really tricky because the important thing with the data center is it's broken down into pieces. So it's like micro learning, isn't it? You will learn to change a disk drive. Well, that's one thing of a data center. And then we talk about our maintenance tasks. Yes, you will learn to do the maintenance inspections. So it's another bit thing. You will learn to rack a server. That's another bit thing. So there's just lots of little bits. And the way that I do, and it shouldn't be daunting for anything. So there isn't anything really challenging. Yeah, sure. When you start getting more experience and you get knock level 1, 2, 3, and you start playing with some of the high-end ASA networking infrastructures, yes, that can be nice and challenging. But by that time, you've been introduced to it steadily and you've grown experience as you go through to that level. So there isn't anything you look at and go, oh my God, it's really scary, because you're not asked to do the really scary things straight away. You're asked to do the nice, simple things straight away, and you build experience, and then you get onto those fantastic things, and then they're not scary. Like walking up a mountain. If you see the top of the mountain, it's miles away, and it's going to be horrible. If you take it one step at a time, well, it's just like walking up your stairs, isn't it? How often do you do that a day?